Hey guys, and welcome to the video. So in today's video we're going to be covering off a couple of the questions that people have asked me after doing the Lenovo Ideapad Duet review. And obviously if you've not seen those videos yet, be sure to head on over, we'll have them linked below. But my initial thoughts that I had when I came away from reviewing the Lenovo was that it was a really good budget device, but I just wished it was a little bit more expensive. There were a few shortcomings on it that kind of drove me mad. And in this video, we're going to cover off some of the budget alternatives that you probably want to consider if you're in the market for that sort of device. So there are three different devices that I've considered for this, and the reason I've gone with these ones are they're all tablet devices, they can all be paired up with a keyboard, they all come in at a relatively decent budget, but they're all going to offer different types of things. There's 3 operating systems in there, so all sorts to consider with this. And the first one up is the Lenovo Duet, which, as I said, I really enjoyed using. It was a gorgeous little device, it's nice, it's compact, and it comes with everything you need for the cost. So for £279, you get the Lenovo itself, you also get a keyboard with it with a trackpad and a little case that goes on the back of it and it has a kickstand. It's very similar to Microsoft Surface devices, and it's a really appealing price at £279. You can't particularly go too far wrong with it. The device itself runs Chrome OS, and for those who aren't familiar, it's Google's operating system. It's very web-based, but the great thing is you can download Android applications onto it as well. So if you do have a particular need or an Android app, you can download that onto the device and run that natively without having to be connected to the internet. That does come in very handy, but one thing to bear in mind is that Android apps, especially with tablets, don't tend to be particularly well done or well optimized, so your mileage may vary with that. The next one that I brought into consideration is sort of middle of the ground, and it comes in at £329, and that is the latest iPad 10.2 inch which got released last month. So now this one's probably the closest in terms of cost to something like the Lenovo, but it's worth bearing in mind that you don't get the additional accessories with it. So for that £329 you're going to get the base model 32GB, and you don't get any of the accessories either. And that's one of the great things about a Lenovo, it literally comes with everything you need. So if you are going to be somebody who's going to need that keyboard or trackpad, case and everything else, then that's something worthwhile bearing in mind. Now Logitech offer a really nice keyboard with trackpad, but that's going to set you back an additional 120 quid. So when you start throwing all of that together, the device starts to get more and more expensive. The other device that I've thrown in there for consideration is the Microsoft Surface Go 2, which again is very similar to the previous ones. It's a 2-in-1 type device. It's mostly focused on being a tablet, but you can get the additional keyboard accessory. Now this one's probably the most complicated out of all of them. It offers a full desktop type experience, which is really handy for those of you who do need the additional applications or that ability to run a sort of more legacy type applications, but it ends up becoming the most expensive. So the base model starts at £399. But the problem with the Surface is you then realistically, to be able to use it to its full potential, you're going to want the keyboard and the trackpad, and that starts at £99. So suddenly, it's definitely not a budget device. Also as well, one thing worth bearing in mind is you don't want to touch the base model of the Surface Go 2 at all, because it runs an awful processor. So to be safe, you want to be going for the M3 option, and that comes in at about £550. So straight away, once you include it with the keyboard, it's $650. You may as well be looking at different devices like a laptop or something else. However, I did throw it in there because it does have its uses. So let's kick off with the Lenovo. Things that I liked about this thing is it's small, it's compact, and it comes in at such a good budget. You don't need to buy all the extra accessories for it. It already comes with a keyboard, it already comes with a case. So literally everything you get in a box is pretty much what you're going to need. Now, one thing I did find is that keyboard was a little bit cramped, but it was very nice to type on. So if you're somebody who's going to be using it for occasional note-taking, sending a few emails on the go, and things like that, then actually this device becomes very appealing. Where it lets itself down is the internals of it. It is exceptionally weak, that processor, and I found even from opening it up that it was lagging in the operating system and it was just running behind. Also, the speakers were pretty rubbish, which is disappointing because if you're going to use this type of device, probably going to want to do some media consumption on it, and it doesn't really live up to that. You'd most likely have to use it with headphones for it to be a comfortable experience, or hook it up to an external speaker, which again just starts to get a little bit funny. Chrome OS itself was really nice to use. It felt very much like a hybrid operating system. It was very close to iOS in terms of smoothness and just being able to use it as a touchscreen, but also having a lot of those desktop features. It has a fully fledged desktop browser, so that comes in exceptionally handy. If you're the kind of person who does do a lot of browsing on the web or a lot of work in web applications, then the Chromebook is really nice to use. One thing that I always complain about on the iPad is, despite them complaining to have a desktop browser, they just don't. There's all sorts of little niggly things that just don't work properly, and it can be a bit of a drawback, especially if you are using it for work. Chrome OS also offers some other really nifty features, and the Lenovo handled them all exceptionally well. So you can multitask like a pro, you can have different windows open at different times, and you're not going to be limited in having that split screen side-by-side application. Once you plug the keyboard in, or once you hook it up to an external monitor, you can multitask to your heart's content. The one drawback is the operating system will do it. The hardware itself does start to get limited, so once you start throwing multiple applications at it, that MediaTek processor inside of the Lenovo Duet just kind of starts to fall apart, which again is disappointing. But at that price point, it is something kind of to expect. So in summary for the Lenovo, it kind of felt like the jack of all trades. It gave you all these different accessories and it tries to do so much, and it is a pretty capable little device for the cost, but at the same time it does everything averagely and it doesn't really do anything well. Apart from the build quality, which feels exceptionally good, and that screen quality, everything else in terms of actually using it, it starts to get a little bit sluggish and slow, and it starts to show its power once you start doing any real work with it. The kind of person this is great for is somebody who just needs to do a few notes, a few emails on the go, and just needs a little bit of browsing, but doesn't have to rely on any heavy task at all or a lot of writing, because that keyboard is very cramped. And at that price point, it's the kind of thing that you can fling in your bag and not particularly worry about. If you've got something like a desktop at home, or you've got a more powerful laptop that you don't want to lug around, then this could be the great little companion device that you're looking for. So on to the next one, and that is Apple's iPad 10.2 inch, and that is their budget model that starts at £329. Now, the great thing about this is it packs Apple's A12 processor in there, so it's a pretty capable little device, and again, it will handle things like multitasking. If you've used an iPhone or an iPad in the past, you are going to be straight away used to the way that this thing works, and that's one of its saving graces, but also one of its drawbacks as well. iOS is pretty fully featured now, and you can do an awful lot of things, and applications are really well optimized for iPads, so you can't go too far wrong. But there are certain things on there that are a bit of a drawback. Things like you can't really use an external monitor, so if you're going to be using this as your productivity tool, you've got to bear that in mind. Some applications work on it, some of them just have massive black borders all around it, which limits it. Also as well, you are limited to Apple's multitasking, which is a side-by-side application type thing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's really well focused, but at the same time, you can't have multiple windows open at the same time. The device itself looks and feels fantastic, and the speakers on it really are good, especially at this price point. But like I said in the introduction, you then have to buy all the additional accessories for it, which aren't cheap at all. So first things first, if you're going to be going down the productivity route, you're going to want a keyboard for it. Now, one of the great things is you can just hook any keyboard up to it via Bluetooth, but mice and trackpads can get a bit funny. Even though iOS now supports mouse and trackpad support, there are certain things that won't work particularly well unless you go for something that's certified by Apple. And that's where the Logitech keyboard and trackpad comes in really nicely. But again, it's an additional 120 quid. So straight away, you're moving up from being a budget device to something more expensive. If you want to use a stylus or pencil, you can pick up one from Apple. But again, that's going to be setting you back nearly 100 quid. So again, that price point is just blowing up all over the place. One nice thing about it is you could probably get away with either going for a keyboard or something like the pencil. If you're somebody who's doing a lot of notes, Apple's note-taking and pencil support is by far, in my opinion at least, out of every device that I've used, blows it away and is absolutely amazing. You can use the note-taking applications, you can get third-party ones. I myself use GoodNotes and I absolutely adore it. And that sort of thing, if you're a student, if you're working or anything like that, and you just need to be doing some note-taking on the go, you can use it and then convert that handwritten text into more traditional formatted or typed text so that we can send it to somebody and they don't have to try and translate your awful spider scroll if you're anything like me. So the iPad, all in all, it feels smooth, it runs really well, and it offers a lot of compatibility. The thing you've got to consider again is going back to that browser piece. If you're doing a lot of work in the web, if you need to use a lot of web applications, then Apple, for whatever reason, in their full desktop browser just doesn't really stand up and things can start to fall apart. There's some compatibility issues there, but for the most part, Safari works well and Chrome works well on it, and you can't go too far wrong. It's just a case of making sure the applications that you need will work on the iPad, which chances are they will do. The device runs well and it will hold up for years to come, and that's one of the benefits of Apple at the moment, is the fact that they are supporting their older hardware and the legacy hardware to make sure that it'll keep going for years and years to come. You just need to look at the iPad Air 2, which is a very old device now, we're looking 5-6 years old, and that thing is still running exceptionally well. You look at the Chromebook, the Lenovo Duet that I mentioned earlier, and literally out of the box, that thing's already starting to lag and become sluggish. So again, you get what you pay for with that. And on to the final one, and probably our most complex one, and that is the Surface Go 2. Now, it is probably the most fully featured device out of the lot of them, but for that you have to pay for it. The 399 model packs a processor that just isn't up to the job, and it doesn't have the RAM to support it either. If you're going to be going for a Windows device, you want to be having at least 8GB of RAM, and you definitely don't want to be touching any of those real basic base level processors, because they're not going to run well out of the box, and they're definitely not going to run well in a year's time. So that is something worthwhile bearing in mind. And the problem with this device is once you start going for that higher level processor, pairing it up with the keyboard and the trackpad, it becomes very expensive, and there'll be better alternatives out there. However, if you're somebody out there who just wants the compatibility of Windows because of certain applications you're using, you're going to plug in a different type of mouse and keyboard anyway, then that price will stay relatively low. And if you can be looking between £500 and £550, which you can pick this thing up for, with the better processor in there, it can become a very capable device. The main benefit of it is it runs full Windows. So if you've got any older applications that haven't been ported across onto things like iOS or onto Chrome OS, then this thing is going to do it. It's also most likely going to be the most compatible thing in terms of work environments. So for students, a lot of things have come across onto Apple's iOS, and you'll be able to get them on Android as well. But for different work environments, a lot of the time you do require older hardware or something that runs Windows, and that's where this thing really comes into its own. It also supports pen input, so you'll be able to pick up a Microsoft Surface Pen and be able to use it with this device. If you're coming from older Microsoft hardware as well, those Surface Pens will work with the device. So again, that could cut down on some of the cost. It's a very well designed device. It's small, it's compact. It's got a kickstand built into its back, so that way you can prop it up. So for media consumption, that is absolutely fantastic. And you can kind of set it up anywhere on a desk and then plug in external devices as well. So keyboard, mouse, and again, anything ultimately that works with Windows, which comes in exceptionally handy. The problem obviously with this device is the price. You're gonna need to go for that better tiered processor, and once you start pairing it up with the Microsoft accessories, it just becomes no longer a budget device, and there are better things that you could go for. Something like the Surface Laptop Go is a really nice little alternative to be looking at, but also another consideration, and we've got a video on this coming up shortly, so make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you can catch that, is maybe looking at used hardware. You can get some awesomely priced used hardware out there, and that can really start to compete with some of these devices. Obviously, this video is more focused on that form factor, so you've got that tablet, which is able to be paired up with something like a mouse and a keyboard. But there's all sorts of other things to be looking at as well. I'd say out of all of these ones, if I personally had to make a recommendation, it would be the iPad. And the reason for that is it comes in at a really decent cost. It's gonna last a very long time. And out of all of them, it's probably the most compatible with different applications. It's gonna offer up so much more performance as well, right from the word go and for years to come. Although the Lenovo is a very appealing price point, and it does remarkably well considering how much it costs, that processor massively holds it back. Like I said, it feels sluggish out of the box, and I dread to think what it'll be like in 6 to 12 months. The iPad feels snappy, it works well, and it offers a lot. Although the accessories can get quite pricey, you can get them in time to come, and as a tablet, it's the best one out of them. Windows 10 has come a long way, and it offers a decent tablet experience, but it's far from perfect. But then obviously the benefit of Windows is you get all of that legacy support. It's all going to come down to what you need from a device and what sort of thing you want it for. But in my opinion, the iPad is going to be the one to go for. Offers the best bang for buck, it's going to last the longest out of them all, and it doesn't break the bank. Once you start looking at the Windows side of things, you may as well look at different devices or used hardware. If you're going to go for something like the Lenovo, then you may as well look at spending an additional £100 to £200 and pick up a better Chromebook. But obviously, ball's in your court, and it comes down to what sort of thing you need. So I hope that video's helped. If it has, hit the like and subscribe button, and if you've got any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below and we'll do our best to answer. In the meantime, hit the like and subscribe button and we'll be back soon. Ta-ra for now. Bye.